Captain Marin Thorne had a knack for waking up into a mess, and today was no exception. The Sovereign Hope was supposed to be on a peaceful cruise through the vast nothingness of space, carrying a load of cryosleeping colonists to a supposed paradise planet. But like most things that sounded too good to be true, it wasn't. She rubbed her eyes, still sticky from a chemically induced slumber. The last thing she needed was a hostile alien ship spoiling her morning coffee, yet here it was, looming on the radar like a cosmic middle finger. "Good morning, Captain," drawled the ship's AI, an overly cheerful construct named Tenebris. Only Marin could have ended up with an AI that sounded like a failed stand-up comedian. "There's an unidentified vessel approaching our location. Would you like me to prepare the panic room, or should I just start the screaming?" "Save the screaming," Marin replied, strapping herself into the captain's chair. "We've got company. Wake the crew, will you?" Within moments, the bridge buzzed with life, or something resembling it. First was Dex, the chief engineer, who looked like he'd been dragged through a black hole backwards. His hair stood up like a wire brush, and his eyes were as red as a fire alarm button. "Couldn't even let me dream of winning the lottery, could you?" he groaned, slamming into his seat. "If there were a lottery, you'd probably win a punch in the face," Marin replied, fingers tap-dancing over the controls. Next, Lieutenant Zara Jinx slinked in. A snarky grin always painted her face. She wore it like battle armor. "What's this? Another morning surprise. I love those. Think of it as breakfast in bed without the bed and with a lot more lasers," Marin said, watching the radar. The Zynax ship was closer now, its outline menacing and definitely unfriendly. "Anyone know any Zynax customs, preferably the non-murderous kind?" "I think they enjoy dissecting the crew after they board," Dex added, tapping away at his console. "Call it an intergalactic bonding experience." "Wonderful," Marin muttered. "See if you can get our weapons online. I'd rather not be dissected before lunch." "No promises," Dex replied. "This ship's older than most of our colonists." "And that's why I brought you," Marin said, eyes fixated on the looming blip. "Your charm and your magical ability to fix anything with duct tape and sheer willpower. And here I thought it was my winning personality," Dex shot back, a rare grin breaking his usual dour demeanor. "What are the odds they're just dropping by to borrow a cup of sugar?" Zara asked, fiddling with her sidearm. "About the same as you winning that beauty pageant last week," Dex chuckled. Zara rolled her eyes. "Just because I didn't win doesn't mean I didn't rock that space bikini." "Focus," Marin snapped, though the exchange had lifted her spirits a sliver. "What do our sensors say?" Tenebris chimed in. "The alien vessel is hailing us, Captain. It's either a friendly greeting or a death threat. Hard to tell with the translation matrix being so literal." "Patch them through," Marin sighed. "Let's see what they want before we go for the shoot first ask questions never approach." The main view screen flickered, revealing the Zynax captain. His appearance was an unsettling conglomeration of scales, eyes, and far too many teeth. "Humans," the alien hissed, each word dripping with condescension. "Surrender your vessel and cargo, and we might allow you to drift in space rather than make you part of it." "Sounds like a compelling offer," Marin said, not missing a beat. "But I'm really attached to this freighter, and we've got a tight schedule. Any chance you'd settle for an autographed picture of our crew instead?" The Zynax captain didn't react, or maybe all the reactions happen under those scales. "You have 5 minutes to comply." "What is it with villains and 5-minute ultimatums?" Zara asked once the transmission cut off. "Think they'd mix it up a bit." "Maybe they've got a meeting after," Dex offered, pulling up the ship's systems readout. "Weapons are 90% functional. Could be worse." 90% is better than 0, Marin said. "Let's see if we can't turn that into 110. "I'll get right on that," Dex said, already focused on his work. "But don't expect fireworks." Tenebris piped up again, all too happy given the situation. "Captain, would you like me to broadcast a message of defiance, or should we pretend we didn't get their hail?" "A little trick I learned from my days in spam mail." "Hold that thought," Marin replied, her mind racing through plans. "Do we have any tricks left in this old boat?" Dex scratched his chin. Well, there's this maneuver I like to call pray and spray. It involves a lot of erratic flying and hoping they shoot at the wrong parts. Sounds like a plan, Marin grinned. Ready the prayer circle. I'm atheist, Zara chimed in. It's metaphorical, Marin shot back. The Zynax ship loomed closer, its shadow stretching over the sovereign hope like the universe's worst hangover. Marin felt the familiar adrenaline coursing through her veins, her instincts sharp as ever. Open comms with the Zynax again, she ordered. The view screen blinked on, the Zynax captain looking as unimpressed as before. Still waiting for your surrender, it hissed. Here's our counteroffer, Marin replied, smirking. You leave us alone and we promise not to turn your ship into scrap metal. The Zynax captain's laughter was unsettling, a rasp of nails on space chalkboard. You humor me, human. You're welcome, Marin said, cutting the transmission. Zara shook her head. Didn't know you were suicidal, Captain. Just confident, Marin replied. Dex, how's that engine looking? Ready for some improvisation, he said. Perfect, Marin said. Then let's show them what human ingenuity can do. The Sovereign Hope roared to life, engines flaring as Dex pushed them to their limits. The ship swooped, twisted, and danced in the void, a lumbering beast with a surprisingly graceful step. Remind me to never fly with you on a good day, Zara muttered, holding onto her seat for dear life. You love it, Marin shot back, focusing on the Zynax ship's movements. Guns are live, Dex shouted, his console lighting up like a festive display. Time to see if they've got any fight in them. Fire at will, Marin commanded. The Sovereign Hope's weapons erupted, a cascade of energy blasting into the black. The Zynax ship shuddered under the assault, its shields flickering like faulty neon signs. Direct hit, Zara cheered, for once dropping her sarcastic veneer. We're actually doing this. Don't get cocky, Marin warned. We're still outgunned and outnumbered. The Zynax ship retaliated, its beams slicing through space, narrowly missing the freighter. The ships danced their deadly waltz, each maneuver measured, each attack calculated. I've got an idea, Dex said suddenly, hands moving faster than a caffeinated squirt. If we overload the secondary systems, we might be able to give our weapons a little extra juice. Might also turn us into a flying bomb, Marin pointed out. Details, Dex replied, flipping switches with reckless abandon. Do it, Marin ordered, her trust in her crew absolute. Zara, keep us in one piece. I'll do my best, Zara said, eyes glued to her console. The Sovereign Hope shuddered as Dex's modifications took effect. The ship's weapons glowed with renewed intensity, ready to deliver a final, decisive blow. Let's end this, Marin said, her voice steady despite the chaos around her. Dex launched their final volley, a storm of energy that tore through the void, colliding with the Zynax ship in a brilliant display of destruction. The alien vessel erupted, a silent scream of metal and flames, its remains scattering like cosmic confetti. Guess they didn't like our terms, Zara quipped, her relief palpable. Good riddance, Marin said, allowing herself a moment to breathe. We did it, Dex said, disbelief tinged with pride. For now, Marin replied, knowing this was just a skirmish in a much larger war. But let's not stick around for encores, Zara grinned. So what's next, Captain? We've got a colony to deliver, Marin said, setting a course through the debris. Let's hope our luck lasts. And as the Sovereign Hope sailed into the vast unknown, Marin couldn't help but smile. Against all odds, humanity had held its ground once more. But who knew how long that would last? The Sovereign Hope drifted in the void, a wounded beast barely clinging to its last breath. Marin Thorne sat in her captain's chair, the adrenaline from their recent skirmish fading, leaving behind the familiar hangover of impending doom. The Zynax ship had taken a good chunk out of their engines before exploding into cosmic confetti, and now they were floating dead in space, a sitting duck with a target painted on its hull. Status report, Marin groaned, rubbing her temples as if trying to massage a migraine away. And make it sound better than it is, I need some good news for once. Dex, still fiddling with the fried console, was the first to speak. Engines are toast. We're talking burnt to a crisp toast, Like when you forget to check the toaster and the smoke detector's screaming at you. Zara, stretching her arms with a yawn that could unhinge a snake's jaw, added on the bright side, the Zynax aren't shooting at us anymore. You know, since they are space dust now. Every cloud, Marin muttered. What's the bad news? More like what isn't, Dex said. We've got power failures across the board, life support's on the fritz, and there's a Zynax boarding party heading our way. Because why just get mugged when you can get mugged and stabbed, Marin sighed. Perfect. Tenebris, how are our cryopops doing? Tenebris, the AI, chirped in with its usual chipper tone. All colonists are still dreaming of greener pastures, Captain. Unaware that their cruise liner is more of a shipwreck. Well, let's keep it that way, Marin said. They don't need to wake up to this mess. The screen flickered, showing the Zynax vessel, or what was left of it, still managing to send out boarding pods like a pissed-off hornet's nest. They had one objective: human physiology. Something about humans piqued their interest, like the universe's worst fanboys. Zara cracked her knuckles. So what's the plan? Welcome them with open arms and a buffet, more like a bullet buffet, Dex said, still wrestling with the console like it owed him money. But given our current firepower, we might be serving finger foods. Terk Voss, the engineer from the graveyard shift, stumbled onto the bridge, his hair a riot of curls, eyes bleary. Did I hear we're about to have guests? And I didn't even clean the place up. Rude. Terk, get to engineering. See if there's any life left in those engines. We need power back, Marin ordered. And maybe a miracle or two if you've got them in your toolkit. On it, Captain, Terk said, rolling his eyes. Also, if anyone finds my left boot, I'd appreciate it. Check under the console, might have run away to join a better ship, Zara suggested. Marin turned to face the view screen, watching as the pods floated closer, their intentions clear as a neon sign in a red light district. All right, team. We've got a welcoming committee to organize. Let's make sure they remember who they're messing with. The crew scrambled, a practiced chaos settling over them. It was a familiar dance, one they had to perfect in the dark corners of the universe. Dex keyed his comms to Terk. How's it looking down there? Like a circuit board's worst nightmare, Terk replied, static crackling over the line. I'll need more time. Time's not exactly on the menu, Dex shot back. Can you give us anything? A spark, a wiggle, hell, I'd take a sympathetic hum at this point. You'll have something, Terk promised, though his voice didn't carry much conviction. Marin gripped her chair's armrests, trying to think several steps ahead. We need to distract them. Make them think twice before cutting open our tin can. Zara, ever the pragmatist, checked her sidearm. I'm guessing talking them down isn't an option, only if you're fluent in getting shot, Dex said, slapping a panel that refused to obey his commands. Tenebris piped in, might I suggest a bit of subterfuge? Perhaps a false distress signal. Lead them on a little wild goose chase. Great idea if we had power, Marin said. Right now, we're the goose. Even a sitting goose can be resourceful, Captain, Tenebris replied cheerily. Right, Dex, Zara. Let's see if we can funnel them where we want, Marin decided. Hit them on our terms, not theirs. The bridge crew moved with practiced efficiency, setting traps with whatever they could scrounge up from the Sovereign Hope's aging belly. Zara's grin widened, a soldier ready for the front lines. Got a couple of surprises left in the arsenal, she said, securing grenades to her belt. Nothing says welcome aboard like the explosive kind. The ship jolted, a reminder that their time was running short. Marin glanced at the console, hoping for a miracle from Terk. Just a bit longer, Terk's voice crackled through. I've got a workaround, but it's being stubborn as a mule. Well, slap some sense into it, Dex urged. Marin smirked at the banter, a small comfort in the chaos. She eyed the incoming pods, the Zynax eager to dissect their way through the human crew. They want to study us, huh? Let's give them a lesson they won't forget. The first thud echoed through the halls as a pod latched onto the ship. A second followed suit, then a third. The sound was like the universe knocking on their door with a battering ram. Zara wrinkled her nose. They're persistent, I'll give them that. They've got good taste, Dex quipped. We are pretty interesting specimens. Try not to flatter yourself, Marin said, her mind racing. Dex, Zara, time to earn your keep. Let's make them regret this little science project. The corridors of the Sovereign Hope became a battlefield, the crew setting up barricades and choke points. Marin felt the weight of a captain's duty, protect her ship, her crew, and the thousands of unconscious colonists relying on them. The Zynax breached the entrance, their scaled forms moving with an eerie grace, weapons at the ready. They were hunters, and the Sovereign Hope was their quarry. Showtime, Zara muttered, her grip firm on her weapon. A volley of fire erupted, the ship's defenders holding their ground, each shot a defiant middle finger to the invading force. The Zynax returned in kind, the corridor lit by the staccato flashes of gunfire. Marin knew their chances were slim, but if they were going down, they'd go down swinging. Keep them at bay. Pull back to secondary positions if you have to. Dex ducked behind a bulkhead, firing blind to suppress the Zynax advance. Terk, if you've got any magic tricks, now's the time to pull a rabbit out of your hat, or engine, whichever. Terk's voice came through, strained but determined. Give me 1 more minute. I'm almost there, make it quick, Marin urged, her voice taut with the strain of command. The battle raged, a brutal dance in the cramped corridors, humanity's grit against alien technology. The Zynax pressed forward, relentless, but the crew of the Sovereign Hope stood their ground, refusing to give an inch. Zara tossed a grenade down the hall, the explosion rocking the ship. They're taking their sweet time learning we don't roll over for anyone. Maybe send them a memo, Dex suggested, reloading. Preferably with more grenades. Marin's heart pounded, every fiber of her being focused on the fight. She couldn't afford to think about the consequences of failure, not when lives hung in the balance. Another explosion, another push from the Zynax. The crew was being forced back, their line collapsing under the weight of numbers. Marin gritted her teeth, knowing they couldn't hold forever. Terk, we're out of time, she shouted, desperation creeping into her voice. Just 1 more, Terk grunted, the comms filled with the sounds of frantic work. The ship shuddered, a groan reverberating through its frame. Lights flickered, consoles buzzed back to life, and a hum filled the air. The engines were back. Got it. Terk whooped, triumph ringing clear. Marin felt a surge of hope, a spark in the darkness. Great work. Everyone fall back, regroup at the bridge. The crew retreated, coordinated chaos as they pulled back, the Zynax hot on their heels. But now the Sovereign Hope wasn't a helpless target. Now she had teeth. Dex, grinning like a madman, keyed the controls. Time for a little payback. With a roar, the ship's weapons came online, targeting the boarding pods still clinging to the hull. Marin felt the thrum of power beneath her feet, the Sovereign Hope coming alive, a beast unchained. The pods exploded, a cascade of fire and debris, severing the Zynax's umbilical cord to their ship. It was a small victory, but one that gave Marin the momentum she needed. Good work, team, Marin said, her voice steady now. But we're not done yet. We've got to ensure they don't try again. Zara nodded, reloading her weapon. Let's mop up these lizards and get back to our regularly scheduled chaos. The Sovereign Hope was battered, bruised, but not broken. Her crew, weary but resolute, stood ready to defend their home against the storm. They had faced the Zynax and held their own, a testament to the indomitable spirit of humanity. Let's finish this, Marin said, determination etched in every line of her face. We've got a colony to save, and I'm damn well not letting a bunch of scaly bastards stop us. The crew rallied, a fierce resolve binding them together. They were the last line of defense, the shield against an uncaring cosmos, and they would stand shoulder to shoulder against whatever came next. The Sovereign Hope was holding, at least by the skin of its proverbial teeth. The corridors were still filled with the scent of burnt metal and desperation, a delightful aromatherapy mix. Marin Thorne, never one to let a crisis pass without a personal stamp, leaned over the controls as another tremor shook the ship. It felt like riding a bicycle with a bent wheel down a hill full of potholes, painful and more than a little bit suicidal. Anyone else feel like we're the universe's new piñata? Dex quipped from his post, fingers flying over the control panel like he was trying to negotiate a very reluctant cat into a bath. Speak for yourself. I'm more of a whack-a-mole gal, Zara replied, the grin on her face as sharp as a serrated knife. She checked her sidearm, clearly wishing for something more substantial, like a portable nuke. You're both missing the point, came the smooth voice of Selakor, the navigator who had a penchant for thinking outside the box, sometimes so far outside you'd need a telescope to see it. Pinatas get busted open for the goodies inside. Us? We're the goodies. That's one hell of a motivational speech, Sella Marin said, her tone dry enough to powder a desert. Any actual ideas on keeping the ship from becoming a Xynax vending machine? Sella smirked, unfazed by the sarcasm. We could use the radiation shielding to create a safe zone. It might scramble their sensors enough to buy us some time. Let me get this straight, Dex said, clearly unconvinced. You want to use radiation to make a safe zone. That's like using a flamethrower to chill a beer. Hey, I'm all for cooking them with their own curiosity, Zara added, cutting in before Sella could retort. But we'd better be sure it won't fry us first. Marin considered it, the idea bouncing around her brain like a hyperactive pinball. Well, desperate times call for desperate measures, and we're fresh out of sane ones. Sella, get on it. Sella nodded, already plotting a course through the ship systems. Her fingers danced over her panel like she was conducting an orchestra of impending doom. I'll need a few minutes to recalibrate the shielding. If the Xynax have a weakness for radioactive sunburns, we'll find it. Great, just make sure we're not the ones getting a dose of SPF 5000, Marin replied, turning her focus back to the unfolding chaos. Zara, Dex, keep the Xynax busy. We need to hold until Sella works her magic. The crew moved with a grim determination, each member knowing that their survival hinged on quick thinking and pure grit. It was a regular day at the office. If the office was on fire and the boss was cheerfully tossing more gasoline onto the flames. The Xynax, clearly unimpressed by the human resistance, pressed their advantage. They moved like a coordinated swarm, adapting faster than a chameleon on a plaid shirt. Their attempts to bypass the humans' defenses were getting bolder, probing for weaknesses like a dentist with a grudge. They are relentless, Dex grunted, firing another volley down the corridor. I'd almost admire it if they weren't trying to kill us. They probably think the same about us, Zara replied, ducking as a shot grazed the wall. Hell, they might even respect us after all this. Nothing says worthy opponent like refusing to die on schedule. Marin barked out orders, trying to keep her crew synchronized. Focus on the choke points. We just need to stall them. The Xynax, meanwhile, were utterly confused by the humans' tenacity. It wasn't just that the crew of the Sovereign Hope refused to lay down and accept their fate. It was the downright audacity of their resistance that seemed to baffle the invaders. Like they'd stumbled into a hornet's nest only to find the hornets were packing heat and a bad attitude. Tenebris, any ideas on what these bastards might want next? Marin asked, not expecting much from the ship's AI but hoping for a nugget of insight. Well, Captain, it seems they are rather single-minded in their research. I'd suggest a strongly worded letter, but I doubt they are open to negotiation. Great, so we're stuck with the galactic equivalent of a hungry teenager, Marin muttered. Sella status, almost there, Sella said, the focus in her voice as sharp as a laser scalpel. Just need a moment. The ship shuddered again, the Xynax relentless in their assault. The crew was being pushed back, step by painful step, but they held the line, grim and determined. Dex, how's it looking from your end? Marin called out, already anticipating the answer. About as encouraging as a funeral on a rainy day, Dex replied, his voice carrying the burden of 1,000 bad options. But we're still kicking if that counts for anything. Counts for everything, Marin affirmed. Sella, tell me you've got something. Done, Sella announced, a triumphant edge to her words. Activating the shield now. The ship's radiation shielding hummed to life, an invisible barrier designed to protect them from cosmic rays and, hopefully, give the Xynax a serious headache. It was a gamble, a desperate one, but in the void of space, luck was just another tool in the box. The Zynax, initially unfazed, suddenly found their systems on the fritz, their coordinated movements stumbling like a drunk on a bumpy road. It was a sight to behold, and for a moment the crew let out a collective sigh of relief. "Well, would you look at that," Zara said, grinning like a cat that had just caught a mouse. "They're not so scary with their pants down. Still ugly, though," Dex noted, firing a shot for emphasis. "Let's see how they handle a little human ingenuity." Marin took a breath, her mind racing with possibilities. "We've got our opening. Let's use it." The crew sprang into action, their movements a blend of calculated precision and reckless abandon. The Zynax were momentarily disoriented, their control faltering, and the humans seized the advantage with the fervor of a gambler on a hot streak. "Concentrate fire on their leaders," Marin ordered, her voice cutting through the chaos like a ship's prow through water. "Let's make sure they know this isn't a picnic." Zara and Dex coordinated their attack, targeting the Zynax commanders with the ruthless efficiency of seasoned predators. Their shots found their marks, and the alien invaders stumbled, their advance faltering. "We're turning the tide," Dex yelled, the adrenaline pumping through his veins like rocket fuel. "Keep it up." Marin felt a flicker of hope, a rare thing in the cold expanse of space. "We can't let up. Sella, maintain the shield. Don't let them regroup." The Zynax, for all their technological prowess, had not expected this level of resistance. The humans, a species they had assumed to be little more than curious specimens, were proving themselves far more troublesome than any data had suggested. "Now's our chance to push them back," Marin said, determination driving every word. "We've got them on the ropes." The crew pressed their advantage, their movements fluid and relentless. The Zynax were forced to retreat, their forces scattering like leaves in a storm. "Looks like they're finally learning who they've tangled with," Zara said, a fierce satisfaction in her voice. "Yeah, but let's not start celebrating just yet," Dex cautioned. "We've got a long way to go before we can call this a win." Marin nodded, her eyes fixed on the retreating invaders. "We've bought ourselves some time, but we're not out of the woods yet. We need to regroup and assess the damage." The Zynax were pulling back, their wounded pride evident even through the hull of their vessel. For now they had been thwarted, but it was only a matter of time before they regrouped and tried again. "Tenebris, keep an eye on their movements," Marin instructed. "We can't afford any surprises." "Understood, Captain." The AI replied smoothly, ever the picture of calm efficiency. The crew began to fortify their positions, preparing for the inevitable second wave. The Sovereign Hope was battered, but she was still in the fight, a testament to the resilience of her crew. "We've got work to do," Marin said, turning to her team. "Let's not waste this opportunity. We've got a colony to protect, and I don't intend to let those scaly bastards derail our mission." Sella, Dex, and Zara nodded, each one knowing the stakes were higher than ever. They had fought off the initial assault, but the battle was far from over. "We've proven we can stand against them," Dex said, a stubborn pride in his voice. "Now we just need to finish the job, and maybe get some sleep after," Zara added, her usual levity tinged with exhaustion. "Sleep's overrated anyway," Marin replied, a wry smile on her lips. "Let's make sure we've got a ship to sleep in first." The crew got back to work, their focus unwavering. They had faced the Zynax and lived to tell the tale, a small victory in a sea of uncertainty. But they were far from finished, and the road ahead was fraught with danger. "Let's show them what humans are made of," Marin said, her voice a rallying cry. "We've still got a few tricks up our sleeves." With that, the crew of the Sovereign Hope dug in, ready to face whatever came next in their struggle for survival. They were outnumbered, outgunned, but not outmatched. Not yet. The Sovereign Hope floated in the vastness of space, a hulking beast of stubborn metal and human tenacity. Its crew, battered but unbowed, had taken a rare breather. But nobody on board was foolish enough to think the Zynax were done with them. Marin Thorne stood at the command console, eyes scanning the myriad screens for signs of the inevitable second act. "Hey Dex," Marin called, her voice casual as ever despite the ticking clock. "When's the last time you checked the comms?" Dex snorted from his station, fingers flicking switches with the grace of a pianist who'd lost the sheet music. "About 2 minutes ago, Captain. I'd say they are as reliable as a politician's promise right now." "Perfect," Marin replied. "I need unreliable like I need a hole in the hull." In the corner, Zara Jinx was busy checking their weapon supplies, her snarky smile a constant companion. "At least we haven't run out of ways to creatively kill things yet. Though, I'm down to my last pack of gum, which feels like a more pressing issue." "Priorities, Zara," Marin said, shaking her head. "Keep your eyes on the guns, not the gum. Can't we have both?" Zara quipped, stuffing the gum back into a pocket with exaggerated care. There was a beat of silence, then a crackle of the intercom. "Captain, I've intercepted some interesting chatter from our scaly friends," Tenebris announced, the ship's AI sounding uncharacteristically chipper. "Seems they're quite taken with your ability to survive a radiation bath." Marin's eyebrow twitched, skepticism setting in. "Let me guess. They think we're some kind of superhuman cockroaches." "Not far off," Tenebris replied. "They're baffled, and it looks like they're planning to bring a few of you back home for a closer look." "Fantastic," Zara muttered, her sarcasm dialed up to 11. "I always wanted to be an intergalactic science project." Marin's mind was already working overtime, wheels spinning like a hamster on a caffeine binge. "All right, clearly we've got their attention, but I'd rather not become the poster child for human durability." "Suggestions?" Dex leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. "If they want to study, we give them a lesson they won't forget. We've been playing defense. Maybe it's time to teach them what offense looks like." Zara nodded, a dangerous gleam in her eyes. "Hit them where it hurts. Make them regret ever thinking humans were good test subjects." "Strategic strike, then." Selacor proposed from her navigation station, her usual calm tinged with a hint of steel. "A message they can't ignore." "I like it," Marin said, her lips curling into a wry smile. "Let's return the favor. Sela, plot us a course. Dex, get ready to show them what human ingenuity looks like up close. And Zara, keep that gum handy. We might need some post-victory chewing." As the crew set to work, the Sovereign Hope began to shift, the engines begrudgingly coming to life under Sela's expert guidance. For a ship that had seen better days, it still had a few tricks up its sleeve. And so did its captain. "Tenebris, keep an eye on their signals," Marin instructed. "Let's not give them any heads up." "Of course, Captain," Tenebris replied, its digital presence a steady companion amid the chaos. The crew was a flurry of activity, the ship buzzing with a renewed sense of purpose. It was a gamble, sure, but then again, when had that ever stopped them? "This feels like a bad idea," Dex remarked, though his grin said otherwise. "What can I say? I'm an optimist," Marin shot back, her tone dry as a desert. "Optimist or lunatic," Zara teased, though her hands were steady on the weapon controls. "Ever the professional, even when cracking wise. With this crew." "Maybe both," Marin conceded, her eyes fixed on the view ahead. "Now let's go give those scaly bastards a taste of their own medicine." The Sovereign Hope glided through space with a deceptive ease, its battered hull casting a long shadow across the stars. Inside, the crew was focused, each member a cog in the machine of defiance. Approaching the Zynex vessel, Sela announced, her voice steady as a rock in a storm. "Time to knock," Marin said, her chair swiveling towards Dex. "Let's let ourselves in, shall we?" Dex's fingers flew over the controls, a maestro orchestrating mayhem. "Guess it's time to show them how we party." The Sovereign Hope surged forward, a comet of human determination barreling towards the Zynex ship. Their defenses were formidable, but the humans had one advantage: unpredictability. And a hefty dose of crazy didn't hurt either. "Ready on weapons," Zara reported, her fingers twitching with anticipation. "Just say the word." "Word," Marin replied, her voice a calm center amidst the brewing storm. Zara punched the controls, the the ship's cannons roaring to life with a satisfying rumble. The barrage streaked through space, a hailstorm of fiery defiance aimed straight at the Zynax's heart. Direct hit, Dex confirmed, his eyes glinting with adrenaline-fueled satisfaction. I think they're getting the message. Good, Marin said, her gaze hard. Now let's drive it home. The Zynax vessel responded in kind, their weapons blazing with alien fury. But the Sovereign Hope danced through the onslaught, a nimble boxer dodging haymakers from a lumbering giant. Looks like they're not big on negotiation, Zara observed, her grin widening as she fired another volley. Surprise, surprise. We'll just have to speak their language, Marin said, her voice laced with determination. Dex, what's our status? Shields holding for now, Dex replied, his tone betraying a note of grudging respect for their tenacity. But we can't keep this up forever. Then let's make it count, Marin ordered, her voice cutting through the chaos like a knife. Sella, find us a way in. We need to get up close and personal. Sella's fingers danced over the navigation panel, her mind a whirl of calculations and probabilities. I've got a few ideas. Hold on, this might get bumpy. The Sovereign Hope veered sharply, its course a zigzagging line of audacious intent. The Zynax, momentarily caught off guard, struggled to adjust their firing patterns. Looks like they didn't see that coming, Dex remarked, a hint of admiration creeping into his voice. Let's hope they're not quick learners, Zara replied, her focus unwavering. The human ship barreled towards the Zynax vessel, its shields absorbing shot after shot with grim determination. The crew, unflinching, pressed on, their resolve hardening with each hit. Almost there, Captain, Sella called out, her eyes fixed on the readouts. Good, Marin said, her voice a calm tide in the rising storm. Once we're in, we hit hard and fast. Show them we're not just lab rats. The Sovereign Hope made its final approach, a juggernaut of fury and firepower aimed squarely at the heart of the enemy. The Zynax ship loomed before them, a fortress of alien technology bristling with menace. Now or never, Marin murmured, her gaze locked on the target. Let's make them regret ever crossing us. With a final burst of speed, the Sovereign Hope breached the Zynax defenses, slipping through a gap in their armor with all the subtlety of a sledgehammer. The crew readied themselves, weapons hot, nerves steeled. Welcome to the party, boys, Zara said, her voice a cocktail of adrenaline and defiance. The humans poured into the Zynax vessel, a tidal wave of resistance crashing against an unprepared shore. The aliens, taken by surprise, were slow to react, their superior technology useless against the unpredictable chaos of human ingenuity. Let's show them what we're made of, Marin called, her voice rising above the din of battle. And maybe we'll finally get some peace. The crew fought with the ferocity of cornered animals, their movements a blur of calculated violence and instinctual cunning. They were outnumbered, outgunned, but not outmatched. Not by a long shot. So, this is what it's like being the invaders, Dex quipped, ducking a swipe from a Zynax soldier. I could get used to this. Let's not make a habit of it, Marin replied, her focus unyielding. I'd rather be home with a drink. The Zynax fought back with increasing desperation, their ranks thinning under the relentless assault. The humans, fueled by a cocktail of adrenaline and gallows humor, pressed their advantage, each step forward a defiant declaration. Looks like they're finally realizing we're not here for tea, Zara said, her grin as sharp as the edge of her blade. Good, Marin replied, her voice steady as the ground beneath her feet. Let's make sure they remember it. With the Zynax forces in disarray, the humans seized their moment, driving deeper into the heart of the vessel. The crew's resolve, honed by desperation and driven by a fierce will to survive, became an unstoppable force. Almost there, Sella called, her voice cutting through the chaos like a beacon. One last push, let's finish this, Marin ordered, her voice a rallying cry. For the Sovereign Hope, and for every damn human they thought they could play with, the final confrontation was brutal, a clash of wills and weapons that left no room for error. The crew, their movements a symphony of practiced violence, broke the enemy's resolve, shattering the Zynax defenses with ruthless efficiency. "We did it," Zara said, disbelief mingling with triumph in her voice. "We actually did it, of course we did," Marin replied, her voice tinged with pride. "We're humans. We don't know how to quit." With the Zynax defeated, the crew regrouped, their breaths coming in ragged gasps. They had won the day, but the battle was far from over. The threat remained, a lurking shadow on the edge of their victory. "Let's not celebrate too soon," Marin cautioned, her eyes scanning the remnants of their battlefield. "We've still got work to do." The crew nodded, their resolve unbroken even in the face of uncertain odds. They had faced the Zynax and lived, a testament to their tenacity and spirit, and they would continue to fight until the very end. "We've got this," Dex said, his voice a steady promise. "Let's finish what we started." Marin smiled, the weight of the universe lifting, if only slightly. "We will." Together, with the sovereign hope at their backs and the stars before them, the crew prepared for the next chapter in their struggle. They were outnumbered, outgunned, but never outmatched. Not yet. "All right, crew," Marin intoned, her voice crackling with the kind of authority that dared anyone to mock it. "We've got one chance to ram this down their scaly throats before they regroup." Dex leaned back from the controls, a wry smile creasing his face as he cracked his knuckles. "I always wanted to say not today, alien scum in a real-life setting. It's a personal bucket list item." Zara, forever the realist in the romance of space warfare, snorted as she checked the charge on her plasma rifle. "Dex, if we make it out of this, I'll personally buy you a t-shirt with that printed on it." "Promises, promises," Dex replied, dodging a stray elbow from Zara as she adjusted her stance, eyes flicking to the growing Zynax cluster peppering their HUD with red alerts. The sovereign hope, true to its name, was holding together but not without its fair share of reluctant groans and complaints. If it had a voice, it would probably be telling them to go to hell, or at least find a less suicidal hobby. "Tenebris, what's the current love note from our new friends?" Marin queried, her fingers dancing over the display like a pianist coaxing a sonata from chaos. "Ah, Captain, it seems they are sending a bouquet of plasma signatures." "Quite the warm reception," the AI responded, with all the sardonic flair a digital entity could muster. "Flowers would have been nice," Zara mused, as the ship jolted from another near hit. "Next time, let's aim for a diplomatic cocktail party." "Yeah, less talking, more shooting," Marin cut in, as she forced her focus from banter to the task of not getting them baked alive in the vacuum of space. "Dex, light 'em up. Let's see if we can't make them reconsider their life choices." Dex slapped the control console with a little too much gusto, and the sovereign hope shuddered as it unleashed a barrage of makeshift ordnance. They had cobbled together weapons from any and every piece of scrap and tech they could find, an improvisational symphony of explosive chaos. "Hope they like fireworks," Dex muttered, grinning like a kid who just set off M80s in the neighbor's mailbox. "Remind me never to trust you with explosives on Earth if we ever make it back." Sella piped up, her usual calm demeanor barely ruffled by the bedlam. "Trust me, these won't be going off anywhere near your place," Dex promised, eyes glued to the monitor as the Zynax formation wavered under the unexpected assault. The ship rocked violently, a jarring reminder of their precarious position. Marin gripped the arms of her chair, her determination a hard knot in her chest. "This is it, crew," she said, her voice a cold steel blade. "We get in, we hit them hard, and we get out. No heroics, just survival." Zara raised an eyebrow, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "What? No dramatic monologue about the glory of battle? Save it for the holodramas," Marin replied dryly. "We've got enough drama right here." The sovereign hope surged forward, its cobbled-together defenses barely holding under the relentless assault. They were a ragtag squad in a battered ship, but damn if they weren't going to put on a hell of a show. "Ready to breach," Sella announced, her hands steady on the controls. "Hold on to something or someone. I'm not picky. The crew braced themselves as the ship punched through the Zynax line, their makeshift armaments blazing a path through the chaos. It was a desperate move, but desperation had a way of turning the tables. "Welcome to the nightmare, boys," Zara called out, her rifle spitting fire as she led the charge into the enemy ship. "Hope you're ready for a rude awakening." The Zynax, caught off guard by the human audacity, scrambled to respond. Their advanced technology was impressive, sure, but it was nothing compared to the sheer bloody-mindedness of a crew with nothing left to lose. The fight was brutal and messy, a primal clash of wills and weapons. Laser fire lit the corridors with a sickly glow, the air crackling with energy and tension. The humans fought like demons, their resolve hard as iron. "Keep pushing," Marin yelled, her voice cutting through the din like a clarion call. "We've got to reach the core and disable their systems." Easier said than done. The Zynax weren't exactly rolling out the red carpet, and each step forward felt like a mile. "Got a bit of a problem," Terk shouted, his voice tinged with panic. "They've got reinforcements coming out of every damn hole." "Well, plug him up," Zara shot back, her own voice a strange mix of exhilaration and fear. "We didn't come this far to get swamped." Terk's response was lost in the chaos as the Zynax surged forward, their numbers suddenly overwhelming. It was a tide of alien bodies and weaponry, and for the first time doubt slithered into Marin's mind. "Fall back," she ordered, her heart sinking with each step. They were being pushed back, their advance crumbling under the weight of impossibility. The crew retreated in a storm of gunfire and shouted orders, their progress undone in a heartbeat. The Zynax pressed their advantage, their victory all but assured. "We're losing ground," Dex called, his voice raw with frustration. "We can't keep this up." Marin cursed under her breath, her mind racing for a solution. They needed a miracle, but miracles were in short supply. "Terk," she yelled, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Get to the escape route. We're bailing." No response. Her heart clenched with a fierce, sudden dread. "Terk," she shouted again, desperation threading her voice. "Captain, we've lost contact." Tenebris intoned, its digital voice devoid of emotion, yet somehow conveying the gravity of the situation. "Damn it." Marin slammed a fist against the wall, her resolve hardening into steel. "We can't leave him behind." "Not like this." But the choice was wrenched from her as the Zynax closed in, their intent unmistakable. Capture or kill, it didn't matter to them, it was all the same end. "Back to the ship," she ordered, her voice a whip crack. Now, the retreat was chaotic, a desperate scramble for safety as the Zynax closed the noose. Marin's heart pounded in her chest, each beat a reminder of the stakes. They had lost Terk, lost a piece of themselves to the darkness of space. "Dex, get us out of here," she called as they reached the Sovereign Hope, the ship a welcome sight amid the carnage. "On it," he replied, his fingers flying over the controls with practiced ease. "Let's see if we can't shake these bastards." The engines roared to life, the ship lurching into motion as it broke free of the Zynax grip. They left behind wreckage and chaos, but the victory felt hollow, incomplete. "We'll get him back," Zara said, her voice a fierce promise. "No way we're giving up now." Marin nodded, her expression grim but determined. "We're not done yet. We've just begun." The Sovereign Hope sailed into the void, a battered ship with a battered crew but still standing. They had been outmatched, outfought, and outrun, but not beaten. Yet. Each pulse of the engines was a heartbeat, defiant in the face of overwhelming odds. They were bruised, battered, but unbroken. "Let's regroup," Marin said, her voice a steady anchor. "We've got work to do." The crew settled into the silence, a wary calm settling over them. They had lost ground, lost a friend, but they were still here, still fighting. "Next time we'll be ready," Dex said, his voice a quiet vow. Zara nodded, her expression hardening into resolve. "We'll make them pay." Marin watched her crew, their faces a patchwork of exhaustion and determination. They were all in this together, a family forged in fire and space. "We'll get him back," she promised, her voice a steely whisper. "And we'll make them regret ever crossing us." The Sovereign Hope sailed on, a ship of survivors in a galaxy of uncertainty. They were outmatched, outgunned, but never out of the fight. Not yet. The first thing Terk noticed when he came to was the smell, a sort of wet, musky aroma, like an old gym sock left to ferment in a swamp. It was the kind of scent that could haunt nightmares, if he survived long enough to have any more, that is. Well, this is just fantastic, he muttered to himself, struggling to sit up against the restraints that held him in place. Captured by lizard men in space and surrounded by whatever the hell that smell is. He glanced around the holding cell, the walls a sickening shade of green that might have once been someone's idea of calming. The Zynax seemed to have a unique taste in interior design, one that leaned heavily towards the Dungeon of Despair aesthetic. "Hello," he called, his voice bouncing back at him with all the enthusiasm of a kid who just got socks for Christmas. No response. No surprise there. The Zynax weren't big on conversation, unless you counted the business end of their blasters as small talk. Terk tested the restraints again, but they held fast. Just his luck. But he wasn't about to let a minor inconvenience like captivity get in the way of his fun. He'd always had a knack for finding the silver lining, or at least the least rusty part of the tin can. "Hey, at least I don't have to worry about cleaning the lavatories back on the Sovereign Hope," he said, thinking of the one upside to this whole mess. And that's when he heard it, a faint hum barely perceptible over the ship's ambient noise. Terk frowned, tilting his head to catch the sound. It was a low, pulsing rhythm like a heartbeat. A bad heartbeat if hearts had the tendency to sound like crappy techno music. He focused on it, something about it tickling the back of his mind. It was familiar, yet different. The Zynax might have been advanced in their tech, but they had a flaw. Everyone did. It was just a matter of finding the right angle and applying pressure, a trick his dear old dad had taught him back on Earth, usually while arguing with stubborn appliances. "Well, I'll be damned," Terk whispered to himself, a slow grin spreading across his face. The Zynax were broadcasting some sort of signal, a frequency. Something he'd heard before during his times tinkering with the Sovereign Hope systems. The realization hit him like a freight truck in low gravity. The Zynax were vulnerable to certain frequencies of radiation. And here he was, sitting right in the middle of their ship, listening to it sing to him like a siren. "Guess aliens aren't as perfect as they'd like to think," he chuckled, the sound bouncing eerily off the walls. Now if only I could get this info to Marin. Meanwhile, back on the Sovereign Hope, Marin was pacing the bridge like a caged animal, her mind working overtime to solve the puzzle they found themselves in. "Any word from Terk?" she asked, though she knew the answer before the question even left her lips. "Not a peep," Dex replied, his tone equal parts exasperation and worry. "He's probably charming the scales right off them as we speak, or getting poached like an egg," Zara added dryly, though her eyes betrayed her concern. "What's the plan, Captain?" Marin stopped pacing and looked out at the endless void of space, a vast expanse of nothing peppered with pinpricks of distant stars. It was beautiful in a terrifying, I'm about to die kind of way. "We need a way to turn this around," Marin said, her voice steady despite the chaos swirling in her mind. "We're not leaving Terk behind. Still, we could use a bit of magic about now," Sella chimed in, her voice a soft counterpoint to the tension. "Or at least a hefty dose of good old-fashioned luck." Marin nodded, an idea starting to form in her mind. They needed to hit the Zynax where it hurt, and right now their only weapon was the Sovereign Hope itself. "All right, crew, listen up," she said, her voice slicing through the murmur like a laser through hull plating. "We're gonna use what we've got. If they're as vulnerable as we think, we'll rig the Hope systems to broadcast a frequency that'll scramble their tech." Dex raised an eyebrow. "And how exactly are we gonna do that?" "Improvisation," Marin replied, a grin tugging at the corner of her mouth. "The same way we've survived everything else." Sella leaned forward, her eyes alight with curiosity. "You think it'll work? It's a long shot, but what else are we gonna do?" Zara retorted, her sarcasm belying a core of fierce loyalty. "Wait around for them to pick us off." "I'd rather go out with a bang," Dex sighed, but there was a glint of mischief in his eyes. Guess I'll have to save my not today alien scum t-shirt for another time. Don't worry, Dex, Marin said with a wry smile. There's always tomorrow. The plan was audacious, reckless even, but that had never stopped them before. They were a crew cobbled together from the fringes of space society, and they'd be damned if they let a bunch of overgrown reptiles get the better of them. Let's get to work, Marin ordered, her voice a rallying cry. We've got a frequency to find and a friend to save. The crew sprang into action, each member taking their place in the makeshift symphony of desperation. They'd build something out of nothing, a patchwork quilt of ingenuity and sheer bloody-mindedness. Hours passed in a blur of activity, the ship buzzing with an energy that belied its precarious state. Marin and Sella worked side by side, their hands moving with practiced ease over the control panels. All right, we've patched into the communication array, Sella announced, her voice steady with the assurance of someone who knew her job inside out. Now we just need to find the right frequency. Piece of cake, Marin quipped, though her eyes were hard with concentration. Let's hope Terk's got some good news for us. Back on the Zynax ship, Terk was doing his best to stay alive and unlizarded. He ran through every possibility in his head, desperately trying to transmit what he'd discovered to the others. Come on, you piece of junk, he muttered to the tiny device he'd managed to jury-rig from the scraps in his cell. Make this work. He had no idea if the signal would reach the Sovereign Hope, but it was better than sitting around waiting to become Zynax Chow. If he could just get a message through, maybe, just maybe, they'd have a fighting chance. The device beeped once, then twice. A faint glimmer of hope sparked in Terk's chest. If this worked, he'd buy himself the biggest steak dinner this side of the Milky Way. Hey, Captain, he whispered into the makeshift transmitter. If you're hearing this, I've got some dirt on our scaly friends. Turns out they don't like certain frequencies of radiation. Messes with their systems like a bad case of space flu. The device crackled, the message sent on a wing and a prayer. He had no idea if it would reach them, but it was better than nothing. Meanwhile, on the Sovereign Hope, the crew gathered around the console, tension coiling in the air like a spring ready to snap. Anything? Marin asked, her voice tight with anticipation. Dex fiddled with the controls, his fingers flying over the buttons with an ease born of desperation. Come on, come on. Give us something, and just like that, Terk's voice crackled to life over the speakers, a lifeline in the darkness. Radiation, frequency, messes with them. Marin's heart leapt, a fierce grin spreading across her face. There it is, folks. Our ticket out of this mess. Sella nodded, her hands flying over the controls as she adjusted the ship systems. Let's give these lizards a taste of their own medicine. The crew worked with a single-minded determination, the prospect of victory lending strength to their weary limbs. They were down but not out, and they'd be damned if they let the Zynax have the last laugh. Ready to broadcast, Sella announced, her voice a lifeline in the chaos. Do it, Marin ordered, her gaze fixed on the void beyond the viewport. Let's see if we can't make them dance. The Sovereign Hope hummed to life, the ship's systems broadcasting the frequency into the void. A weapon born of desperation, gambling on the idea that the Zynax arrogance would be their undoing. Here goes nothing, Zara muttered, her eyes glued to the readouts. For a long, tense moment, nothing happened. Then slowly the Zynax ship started to falter. Their formations wavered, ships peeling off as their systems went haywire. It's working, Dex cheered, his voice ringing with triumph. Marin allowed herself a small smile, her heart swelling with hope. They'd found the chink in the Zynax armor, and now they had a fighting chance. Terk, you beautiful bastard, she muttered under her breath, pride and relief washing over her in equal measure. The tide had turned, and for the first time in what felt like an eternity, they had the upper hand. The crew of the Sovereign Hope had taken on the galaxy's worst, and against the odds they'd found a way to win. Time to finish this, Marin said, her voice a steely whisper that carried the weight of their shared resolve. Let's show these bastards what happens when you mess with our crew. The Sovereign Hope surged forward into the fray, a beacon of defiance in a galaxy gone mad. And out there, somewhere, Terk was waiting for them to bring him home. The Sovereign Hope's bridge was a mess of blinking lights, frantic movements, and the unmistakable scent of desperation. If chaos had a smell, this was it, like burnt coffee mixed with panic sweat and overcooked adrenaline. Marin Thorne stood at the helm, the captain's chair looming behind her like some forgotten relic of a saner time. Her eyes were glued to the main display, where the Zynax ships twirled in confusion, the radiation frequency doing a number on their high-tech systems. "You know, if we get out of this, I'm writing a book," Dex muttered, fingers flying across his console. He was orchestrating the ship like a maestro conducting an orchestra of disaster. "Plasma pirates and lizard lasers, how I spent my summer vacation." "Put me down as an editor," Zara chimed in, her fingers dancing over her weapon controls. "I'm a sucker for a good fiction." Marin spared a glance at her crew, grateful for the dark humor that kept them all sane. Less talking, more zapping. "Let's make sure Terk's sacrifice isn't for nothing. Speaking of which," Sella interjected, her voice calm despite the storm raging around them, "we should probably think about getting him back before he becomes the main course at a Zynax buffet." "Right," Marin nodded, her mind snapping back to their immediate problem. "Dex, can we pinpoint his location now that the lizards are busy dancing to our tune?" Dex hammered a few more keys, his brow furrowed in concentration. "Got him. He's in a holding cell. Looks like they've got a taste for vintage decor. It's all greens and retro prison chic." "Great," Zara said dryly. "Let's hope their taste in decor is as outdated as their security systems." Sella stood up, a mischievous glint in her eyes. "Time for a field trip," Marin confirmed, a smirk pulling at her lips. "Let's bring Terk home, and if you find any souvenirs, grab them. I'd love a nice Zynax paperweight for my desk." Zara and Sella made for the exit, leaving Marin and Dex to keep the ship steady. The Sovereign Hope hummed with barely contained energy, the crew's determination more potent than any weapon. "Don't have too much fun without us," Marin called after them, her voice laced with feigned jealousy. "You know us," Zara shot back. "Always saving the best toys for last." As the duo disappeared down the corridor, Marin turned her attention back to the console. She couldn't shake the sense of impending doom that clung to her like a cold sweat, the kind that comes from knowing you might be playing your last hand in a high-stakes game of cosmic poker. Zara and Sella navigated the narrow corridors of the Sovereign Hope with ease, their steps synchronized like a well-rehearsed dance routine. The docking bay loomed ahead, the gateway to their rescue mission. "Think we'll make it back in one piece?" Zara asked, her voice casual despite the weight of their task. "If we do, drinks are on me," Sella replied, her eyes sparkling with determination. "Assuming there's anything left to drink." "Now there's motivation," Zara grinned, checking her plasma rifle. The weapon hummed to life, its glow a comforting presence in the dimly lit bay. The airlock opened with a hiss, revealing the vast emptiness of space, dotted with the confused dance of Zynax ships. Hovering just beyond their reach was the Zynax vessel holding Terk captive. "Let's give him something to remember us by," Zara said, stepping into the waiting shuttle. Once aboard, the shuttle detached from the Sovereign Hope, gliding towards the alien ship with a silent grace that belied the chaos within. "Approaching target," Sella announced, her hands moving over the controls like a seasoned pilot. "Prepping to dock. Any bets on what Terk's up to?" Zara chuckled. 5 credits says he's giving them a lecture on why kidnapping is a bad idea." "You're on," Sella replied, maneuvering the shuttle into position. "Let's just hope he's still in one piece to deliver it." The shuttle docked with a thud that reverberated through the hull, a reminder of how precarious their situation was. The airlock cycled open, revealing the entrance to the Zynax ship, a dark maw leading into the unknown. "Here we go," Zara muttered, stepping forward with Sella close behind. The interior of the Zynax vessel was a study in sterility, all gleaming surfaces and clinical precision. It was the sort of place that made you itch for no reason, like a doctor's office or an accountant's conference room. Which way to the holding cell? Zara asked, her voice echoing off the walls. Sela consulted her wrist display, frowning at the holographic map. Left, then right, should be just up ahead. Let's hope the Zynax are too busy to notice us. They moved through the corridors with practiced efficiency, the tension coiling in their chests like a coiled spring. Every corner held the potential for disaster, every shadow a lurking threat. But luck, for once, seemed to be on their side. The Zynax were distracted, their attention focused on their failing systems rather than the intruders in their midst. The holding cell was just as Dex had described, a sickening green cube, the sort of place that made you question your life choices just by existing. Inside, Terk sat cross-legged, tinkering with a device that looked like it had been assembled by a particularly creative toddler. "Terk," Zara called, relief flooding her voice. Terk looked up, a grin splitting his face. "About time you got here. I was starting to think I'd have to redecorate this place myself." "Nice to see you too," Sela replied, moving to the control panel. "Let's get you out of here before the lizards realize we're stealing their prize." The door slid open with a hiss, and Terk stepped out, stretching like a cat waking from a nap. "You have no idea how much I've missed fresh air, or whatever passes for it on the Hope." Zara rolled her eyes. "Save the reunion for later. We've got to move before they realize we're gone." The trio retraced their steps, the corridors eerily silent as they made their way back to the shuttle. It was almost too easy, like the universe was setting them up for a punchline they wouldn't find funny. "Almost there," Sela whispered, her hand hovering over her weapon. But just as they reached the airlock, a siren blared, the ship shuddering as it came to life around them. "Looks like our exit strategy just got complicated," Zara muttered, her grip tightening on her rifle. "Complicated's my middle name," Terk quipped, casting a wary eye down the corridor. "Though right now I'd prefer it if it was quick." They piled into the shuttle, the airlock cycling closed behind them. Sela slipped into the pilot's seat, her fingers dancing over the controls as she powered up the engines. "Hang on," she called, the shuttle detaching with a lurch that sent them all stumbling. The Zynax ship loomed behind them, a behemoth of alien engineering that was quickly becoming a distant memory. The shuttle rocketed towards the Sovereign Hope, their home and haven in the midst of chaos. "Think they'll be mad we crashed their party?" Terk asked, peering out the viewport at the retreating ship. Zara shrugged, a grin tugging at her lips. "They'll get over it, or not. Either way, not our problem." The shuttle docked with the Sovereign Hope, the warmth of familiarity wrapping around them as they stepped back aboard. The crew was waiting, their faces a blend of relief and exhaustion. "Marin," Terk called, striding onto the bridge with a swagger that belied his recent captivity. Marin turned, her eyes alight with a combination of relief and amusement. "Terk, I see they couldn't keep you down." "Not for lack of trying," he replied, clapping Dex on the shoulder. "Thanks for the rescue. Next time, though, let's skip the whole getting captured part, Dex grinned. "No promises." "Keeps things interesting." Marin cleared her throat, drawing the crew's attention. "All right, folks, let's wrap this up. The Zynax are retreating, but let's make sure they know not to mess with us again." "Happy to oblige," Zara said, her fingers poised over her console. "Let's give them a goodbye they won't forget." The Sovereign Hope unleashed one final salvo, a parting gift that sent the Zynax ship scrambling. The alien vessels twisted away, their formation dissolving into chaos as they fled the human ship's wrath. "Looks like they're leaving," Sela remarked, watching the retreating ships with satisfaction. "Can you blame them?" Dex snorted. "We are a bit much to handle." Marin allowed herself a moment of triumph, her gaze sweeping over her crew. They'd faced the impossible and come out on top. Against all odds, they'd won. "Set course for the nearest starbase," she ordered, her voice steady and calm. "Let's get these colonists to their new home and ourselves some well-earned rest." The Sovereign Hope hummed to life, engines firing as the ship turned away from the battlefield. They defied the odds, outsmarted their enemies, and made it out alive. "Your book idea wasn't half bad, Dex," Terk said, settling back into his seat. "Just make sure you get my good side." "Don't worry," Dex chuckled. "I'll make sure you're the hero. After all, everyone loves a good redemption arc. Zara rolled her eyes, a smirk on her lips. Just make sure you spell my name right. And remember, I'm the one who shot our way out. The crew laughed, the sound echoing through the ship like a balm for their weary souls. They'd survived, and for now, that was enough. The universe might be a dark and dangerous place, but together they could face whatever it threw at them. And who knows? Maybe they'd finally get a quiet day on the Hope. But then again, where's the fun in that? The Sovereign Hope's bridge was a clatter of voices, the occasional spark flying from a console as the ship settled from the chaos. If the universe had a sense of humor, it was the kind that made you laugh just before kicking you in the teeth. Captain Marin Thorne surveyed the aftermath of their recent skirmish, taking in the mix of relief and exhaustion etched on her crew's faces. The Sovereign Hope was as battered as a second-hand Corvette racing in a demolition derby, but she was still their stubborn sanctuary. Well, Marin drawled, running a hand through her tousled hair, wasn't that the cosmic equivalent of being shot at and missed, shit at and hit, Dex, ever the tech wizard with a penchant for gallows humor, snorted without looking up from his console. Wouldn't have it any other way, Captain. I mean, who doesn't love a little morning mayhem with their coffee? If by coffee you mean lukewarm engine oil, then count me in. Zara Jinx chimed in, her usual snark wrapped around every word like a protective cloak. She was still pulling herself together, checking over the weapon systems with the care one might give a beloved pet. Selacour, navigator and resident optimist, if only by default, glanced up from her calculations. Shall we get back to saving the galaxy, or at least our sorry asses? Let's not get ahead of ourselves, Marin replied, eyes flicking to the main display. We've still got a bucket of bolts to patch up first. The ship's AI, Tenebris, made itself known with a voice smoother than oiled silk, and about as trustworthy. May I remind you, Captain, that my calculations indicate a 92% chance of catastrophic failure should we engage in conflict again without repairs. Thanks, Tenebris. Always a joy to hear the odds of us exploding, Marin muttered, waving a dismissive hand. Now, how about you focus on something useful, like keeping us from floating apart? Your wish is my command, Tenebris intoned, its digital personality just a hair shy of condescending. As the crew set about the myriad tasks of putting their ship back together, Marin let the hum of activity wash over her. It was a symphony of clangs, curses, and the occasional burst of static, a chaotic chorus that had become oddly comforting over the years. Each sound a reminder of their survival, a testament to human tenacity even in the darkest corners of space. She leaned against the captain's chair, eyes tracing the lines of the ship's interior. You know, Marin began, more to herself than anyone else, we might be the galaxy's punching bag, but damn if we don't keep getting back up. Dex chuckled dryly. I'd call it masochism, but who's counting? Hey, it's not like we have much choice, Zara interjected, flashing a grin that was all teeth and defiance. Besides, who else is going to keep the universe entertained? Terk, freshly liberated from a Zynax prison cell, ambled over with a swagger that might have been more convincing if he didn't still look like he'd been on the losing side of a bar brawl. I'd like to thank you all for the delightful rescue, though next time, a heads up on the kidnapping would be nice. I'd have packed a toothbrush at least. Noted, Marin replied, smirking. Next time we'll include a packing list. As the crew worked, they fell into the natural rhythm of shared experience. Each person had their part to play, and despite the odds, they played it well. They were a patchwork family, held together by duct tape, sarcasm, and a shared sense of purpose. Marin wandered over to a viewport, watching the stars slip by outside. Space was an unending void, indifferent to their struggles, yet somehow it still felt like home. It was ironic, she mused, that humanity's greatest achievement was flinging itself into the cold, dark unknown and calling it freedom. Think the colonists are still asleep? Sela asked, breaking the captain's reverie. Cryosleep, Marin replied with a wry twist to her lips. Cheapest way to travel when the universe wants you dead. And here I thought it was just a fancy way to avoid talking to your neighbor, Terk added, earning a chorus of chuckles. Let's just hope they don't wake up to find their new planets inhabited by something with more teeth than brains, Zara said, ever the realist. Or worse, Dex piped in, something with more brains than teeth. We all know how that ends. A hush fell over the bridge as they each contemplated the possibilities. But Marin knew better than to dwell on what-ifs. The future was just a series of tomorrows waiting to be endured, one indignity at a time. All right, enough doom and gloom, Marin declared, clapping her hands together. We've got a ship to keep flying and a colony to deliver. Let's get to it. The crew dispersed, their banter trailing off into the background as they returned to their duties. Marin lingered a moment longer, watching as Dex and Terk argued over some malfunctioning component, Zara and Sella trading barbs as they plotted the next leg of their journey. Tenebrous voice cut through the air, a soft reminder of the AI constant presence. Captain, I've completed a diagnostic of our systems. Would you like the short version or the depressing one? Give me the short version, Marin replied, crossing her arms. We're not dead yet, Tenebrous quipped, earning a snort from Zara. Great, Marin said. Keep me posted on any changes. Always, the AI replied with just a hint of digital amusement. With the immediate crisis over, Marin took a moment to reflect on their recent ordeal. They'd faced the Zynax, outmaneuvered their threats, and emerged victorious, albeit a bit more battered than before. It was a victory not just of survival, but of spirit, a testament to humanity's ability to adapt and endure, even when the universe seemed determined to snuff them out. It's funny, isn't it? Marin mused to herself, her voice barely above a whisper. How we keep finding new ways to survive. What's that, Captain? Sella asked, having overheard. Just thinking out loud, Marin replied, turning to face her crew once more. We might be outnumbered, outgunned, and out of our minds, but we're still here. That's got to count for something. Dex grinned, a mischievous glint in his eyes. Hell yes, it counts. We're the ones writing history, one explosion at a time. Just make sure you spell my name right, Zara called from her station, her tone playful. Wouldn't dream of getting it wrong, Jinx, Dex shot back with a wink. As the laughter faded, Marin felt a sense of contentment settle over her. They were a ragtag bunch, held together by little more than grit and a shared sense of adventure, but they were hers. And together, they could weather whatever storm came their way. Set course for the nearest starbase, Marin ordered, her voice steady and certain. It's time we gave those colonists a home. Aye, Captain, Sella replied, fingers dancing over the navigation controls. The Sovereign Hope lurched forward, engines humming to life as they set off once more into the depths of space. The journey ahead was uncertain, fraught with dangers both known and unknown, but that was a problem for another day. Today, they were alive together and ready to face whatever came next. As the stars stretched into lines outside the viewport, Marin allowed herself a rare moment of peace. She didn't know what the future held, but for now, that was okay. They'd face it together with humor, resilience, and the occasional well-timed plasma rifle blast. Hey, Marin, Terk called, breaking the silence. Next time we save the galaxy, can we do it with a bit more style? Marin chuckled, turning to face him with a grin. Sure, Terk. Next time we'll wear tuxedos. Finally, Dex interjected. A rescue mission with class, Zara laughed, the sound bright and full of life. As long as I get to keep my rifle and snazzy banter, I'm in. And with that, the crew of the Sovereign Hope settled back into their routines, the promise of new adventures glinting on the horizon. The universe was vast and unforgiving, but they had each other, and sometimes that was enough. As they sped toward their next destination, Marin took one last glance at the stars, her heart full of hope and defiance. They were the unsung heroes of the void, the guardians of humanity's future, and they wouldn't have it any other way. The Sovereign Hope continued its journey, a beacon of resilience in a galaxy full of uncertainty. And as long as they had each other, they would keep fighting, keep surviving, and keep laughing in the face of danger. Because in the end, that's what made them human.